Welcome to the People's View for December 19th, 2019. I'm Bill Ohm, I'm your host. With me is my friend and colleague, Carl Seidel.
Hi.
We're both former state reps, and we're interested in talking about the impact of some of the developments both in the city and at the state that affects the pocketbook of the citizens of Nashua, New Hampshire. So, Carl, one thing that popped right up was the paper of the Union Leader in Monday's edition. Charter schools still lack cash.
Right.
So what's all this about?
Well, somebody thinks that we're taking it away from the privates for the regular schools. And actually, the charter schools in New Hampshire are part of the school district.
Yeah, they're public schools, aren't they?
That's right. They are. In fact, they're getting less money than the regular schools are. And every student that transfers from the regular schools to a charter school only gets a portion of the state donation, and the original school has the other portion. So I don't know why they think they're taking it away from them.
Yeah, isn't the reality that if you have a charter school, there is actually more dollars spent on education?
Yeah,
Because you get
definitely.
the regular tax money and you get some private money.
Right.
So you get more spending for the same population.
Right.
So wouldn't you think charter schools would be a benefit to everybody in the state? Both
And the charter
teachers?
schools are for everybody in the state. It's not something where it's only the people who could pay for it. It's the people who get the lottery number through. It's all lottery choice in most of them. And the charter schools are focused on a way of doing certain things. So if a person is focused on the artist type of thing, or commercial use, or scientific use. Right here in Nashua, we're lucky we have one of the country leading schools in science and math.
Yeah, we have the World Academy and others right here in Nashua. We're really blessed to have these great charter schools, but they're under attack. The legislature has turned down $46 million of federal money to support charter schools.
Right. It would be helping all these other charter schools who are doing things that our schools don't have to do. They don't have to pay rent for the facility. We buy the facilities for those people, and the charters are having to rent facilities to do that. Not only do they have to do that, they have to find an area that's suitable to the growth of those schools. And they have a very high graduation rate. I don't think people appreciate the fact that there are different schools for different people. People learn differently. People are enthusiastic about different things. And if you can match those up, you have a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think in my own family, I went to schools in the city of Chicago, public schools. We had a technical high school, and I was kind of the guy who liked to deal with electronics and, burning out circuits.
Not electrocuting yourself, I hope.
Surviving it. So electric shop and electronics lab are my favorites. But my brother Bob, a year and a half younger, he was the opposite. He was mechanical. He would love taking things apart and figure out how it worked. And so we wound up going to mechanical engineering, very much of a really hands-on. I became more of an engineer, kind of a paperwork kind of a guy. And we learned differently. My brother Bob would, experiment with things. And, I remember he would experiment with the, what I'll call the tensile strength of plastic.
Oh. This was in high school?
But I think probably in grade school.
Oh,
so he would put together these models, and then he would put a firecracker inside and blow it up. So we wanted to see what would happen to things. And I kind of...
Well, it's not only the type of subject matter, but it's also the people and the type of, whether it's a regimental, whether it's a loosely regulated school or what. Some people react better. Some people don't like to be told to do everything. Other people are just waiting to be told to do everything.
Yeah, definitely a different learning style.
It is. It is. And I didn't really realize that myself until I went to college. And I went to different colleges, and I realized there the teachers were well known to be radically different in the way they taught.
Now they're differently radical, but that's another story.
Well, yeah, that too, but just the way they handled it, whether it was mathematics or English or history or political science, which obviously has different tones to it in different schools. But I flourished under some, and others it was like they were teaching me in Chinese. I just couldn't understand where they were going.
Yeah.
You know?
Good point, Carl. I mean, I see this, when I was campaigning, I would knock on doors and try to find out what are the concerns of the people in my district, Ward 9 here in Nashua. And the first time I campaigned was 2010, and I have no kids. So I was surprised at all the stay-at-home folks that were homeschooling their kids.
Yeah.
So I was curious about that. So I said, well, we have a public school down the street. We have a bicentennial school, a pretty good school. What's your thoughts? And they said, well, I'm a little concerned about, bullying. I'm a little concerned about what my kid is really interested in and whether he's being taught things that he's interested in as opposed to, maybe a broader agenda that would get he or she bored. And also that she didn't think that the instruction was as good as what she would give her son or daughter herself. So she stayed at home and homeschooled the kid. They would go to the curricular activities outside with the school, but the education was by the homemaker. And that was an eye-opener to me. And then there was other folks I talked to who said, well, religious folks, we have a lot of religious folks here in Nashua, and they wanted to send their kids to a parochial school, and with some very good ones. And they would do that. They said, well, it's a different type of education I want for my kid. We're a religious family, and I want more of a Christian education. And so we would go to one of the parochial schools. So it's different kids with different styles, and different families with different styles.
And I think too the feeling that I haven't had any kids go here to Nashua. We moved up here after they all grew up, but where they went to in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, we had a very good relationship with the administration. We had 4 children, fairly close together, and we, for the most part, wanted them to have the same teachers, especially if our oldest daughter liked them. But they all got along well, and if we had a problem, they would listen to us. And there was actually one time when they were in high school that they listened very well, because there was one teacher that who at one time was one of the big star teachers, was sort of running out of gas, you might say. And she just wasn't teaching as well anymore, and we could notice that. And they listened to us, and she took early retirement. So they handled that on a more like family basis in a way, which I appreciated. And I haven't met anybody here who had told me they had the same approach. And I think that's one of the things that's missing. You got to understand that the children are different. I think the adults are different too. One thing here in New Hampshire is we like choice. We like choice in whatever we do. We're not the same, and we appreciate people who aren't the same as us. It's not that we don't like them, it's just that we're different. We have different likes.
Yeah, that's a key part about diversity, Carl. When you talk about choice, you're really talking about choices in all aspects of life. Your choice in religion, choice in lifestyles, choice in how you want to bring up your kids. And I think it's our tradition in New Hampshire to advocate for choice, to not put people in a box and say, well, you've got to do here and do that. No, that's not what we say at all. We said, look, you're an individual. We respect your individuality, and we respect your right to make choices that fit in with your particular lifestyles. That includes the choice of how you educate your kids. I mean, personally, I think the answer to all this is vouchers for the parents. Every parent, we get a voucher for whatever school, or including homeschooling, that they would like to use it for and get the money for that purpose. And then you would have competition for those vouchers. And in my experience, and your experience also, Carl, being in business, competition is brutal.
Yeah.
It forces you to, if you want to keep your market share, keep your kids. You better have something to offer those kids. And choice puts pressure on the administration to perform and to gain market share, or at least retain the one you've got. So I have to object to a lot of the activities by the teachers' unions who try to restrict choice. The question is, what's the purpose of the money we're paying for education? Certainly we're going to take care of our teachers. Certainly we do that. But traditional public schools are not always the answer for what the parents would choose to have.
Well, I don't think they're set up to be, to handle a dozen different techniques, if you will. I mean, that's hard to manage something like that.
Yeah.
But they should be able to try to accommodate learning styles. That's one of the key things. I don't think they have to try to control social styles. I don't think they have to go with certain ways that there are groups that are promoting certain things. That they ought to be able to accept that somebody wants to do it differently. If we can do a common measurement to see how well they are learning what they have to learn. There are certain things that you want the people to be ready for if they're going to a technical school, if they're going to a college, if they're going to music or something like that, the arts. So you want to make sure they're prepared for that as they grow along, as well as being a good citizen. I think that's one of the things that I see is lacking. People don't understand what it means to be a good citizen and what you have to do to support your government, who's going to try to keep you safe and healthy. Those things are all general, but we're not looking at it that way, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of lost the history of why those values are important. What the purpose of government is: protect ourselves, to take care of the needy, to educate the kids. But, going into a whole depth of minutia beyond that is really stretching the role of government. You don't want government to go into your kitchen and tell you what food you can or can't have that day for your dinners. You don't want the government to go into your home life, no matter what type of cooking you want to have. Let's leave it at that.
Definitely, yeah. You don't want to have the strict. Like somebody. Not many people would like to go to a military school. They don't like the regimen, but other people eat it up.
Yeah.
They want to be regimented, and they want to go with a group that feels like a team. But we do have to understand that other people are different.
Yeah. That's an excellent point about the team building. You could have disaffected individuals who are kind of looking for a resource to become affiliated with. And, I grew up in Chicago, and, you had gang options, which were not good at the time and have gotten worse in certain parts of the city.
Same thing. I grew up in Long Island and outside New York, and they had that. They still have some real problems.
But, if you've got, parents at home who are kind of looking at what's best for my kid here, he's hanging around with the wrong crowd, and maybe he's more suited for a more disciplined curriculum. And then if you decide that the family is patriotic and would like to think about a military career, I mean, that's just terrific training. And bonding with the people you're with. You really take a youth and make a man or woman out of that person through a few years of military.
Well, you're talking about support, and it's a $40-some million is not something to laugh at. They're really just on a political scale, I think, rejected it. I think that the Commissioner of Education has a new idea. He wants to spread out and give more options to the people, so they'll find a more success in life because of the different approaches that they want to take. And I didn't realize how many it's grown to, but I think there's 20 or 30 in the state, charter schools. Yeah. And what a selection of different,
Yeah, you don't have to go very far to find a school that's appropriate for your kid, especially if we can increase the number of schools. But we have another issue with schools, which is the resources for school building. One of the controversial topics in the paper this week, again, is the proposed bonding of a new middle school in the city of Nashua.
Right. That's the big part of it, but there's other things that are in there too.
Yeah, there's public works.
Facilities, and
$6 million design to construct a public work office facility.
The new garbage truck.
You'd think that in budgeting, you'd have your operating budget cover these type of expenses. So what's going on here is that the operating budget is already filled up with all kinds of programs, and now the proposal is to borrow money to build a big new public school, not a charter school, but
a regular junior high school.
Yeah. So we're going to not take money for charter schools, but we are going to ask the taxpayers for the right to borrow money to go above our budget for a new school.
Right.
Now, I did some calculation on that. We got roughly 90,000 people in the city of Nashua, and we're going to look at spending maybe $170 million between principal and interest for that bond. So that's $1,800 extra tax money that are going to have to be paid by every man, woman, and child in the city of Nashua. And I wonder if the voters know that this money is going to be, if you've got a family with 4 people, you're looking at well over $8,000 worth of expense that you have to pay for the life of this project, in addition to your regular taxes. Is that going to be worth it? Do we have a capital budget plan?
Well, I don't know how many meetings they had. They supposedly had a lot of meetings on the school issues, because not only do they have to build a new one, they want to refurbish the other 2 and get rid of the Elm Street School, which all amounts to lots and lots of money. I've only gone to 1 or 2 meetings on the new school. First of all, they're actually building it for expansion when we have declining population in the school. I don't know why they are doing that. I don't see how they justify it. I don't think they've come out and shown what the population is in each class from kindergarten through the end of high school. And is it something that we can't build with the availability of extending it if we do get an increase in the children? Because that's not the way it looks like in the population over the last several years. And what if they had an alternative? Is there a way of, did they consider sort of a stripped-down model? They built a beautiful North High School. Did they have to build it that nice? You can build an adequate teaching facility without spending a lot of money. I had the experience in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, when I moved here in 1969, that they were coming up with at that time, grand high school for about $25–30 million at that time. The whole population rejected it so bad. Got somebody coming in who had an adequate high school. It just didn't have a lot of things. The swimming pool, for example, was in the other one. Another auditorium was in there, where the auditorium in the current high school was adequate. to be used for shows and all that sort of stuff. They came in with a $10 million, which only took a 10-year mortgage instead of a 20 or 25-year mortgage. And it worked out quite well. They added things as they needed them to the school as it advanced in age, and it's still being used, and the population never exploded more than it could handle.
Yeah, it's
But I don't see that in their plans. You know, they don't offer you options. They come out and they only want to show you one thing, and it's either this or the children are going to be harmed.
oh really.
You know,
Well, I think part of the problem is, frankly, is that the school board and the aldermen, with maybe one exception of the school board, are all from the Democrat Party. Mm-hmm. And they don't seem to have the interest in the physical issues, but they are very interested in protecting the employment of the teachers.
definitely, yeah.
And
administration.
yeah, they've got the top heavy on the administrator
very
side.
top heavy.
So, I mean, if you're going to run a business, I mean, I think the best teachers should compete for jobs throughout the educational system, whether it's a charter school or a public school that's funded directly by the, well, they're both funded by the citizens. But the choice of having the teachers go wherever they think it's the best educational opportunity, I think the money should then follow the teacher
Right.
by following the kids who would go to that teacher. So it's a tough problem, Carl, but I think we're not on a good path to solving that.
Well, I think our audience has to participate a little bit more. As I said, I only went to one or two meetings on it, and we didn't have more than a dozen or so people there. When we raised up the taxes, what they were going to be in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, we had hundreds going to those meetings.
So I think the issue is framing the choices in terms of the tax impact, which would then get more attention, you know, by the voters who have to pay these property taxes. Because we've had a big property tax increase in the city of Nashua. It's up about 5%, dollars.
And it's going to be analyzed again. You don't know what's going to happen this next time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's important that the citizens of Nashua know who's going to be representing their interests when it comes down to these issues like the school choices on charter schools, like the school buildings, and
Even the school new strategic plan, which adds more administration people, and it's going to cost another $3 to $5 million. And I don't know whether you need that.
right. Well, one other topic I'd like to close with, Carl, is the issue on elections. I saw in the paper this week, Hampton couple pleads guilty to voter fraud charges, which is interesting. They happen to live in Belchertown, Mass., but they vote absentee in Hampton. And another person, 20-year-old, appears to be a college student who submitted a ballot in Durham, but also put his absentee ballot into his apparent hometown of Drake, Mass. So the topic here is the crackdown on voter fraud. I have a little bit of knowledge about this because in 2012, 2014, I was looking for the AG's report on voter fraud. And I know in 2012, there's about 1,000 different postcards that had come back to the Secretary of State saying that the person who did same-day registration with no ID was not discoverable.
Right.
No answer to the postcard. So I called the AG's office, and I sit down with one of the attorneys, and he says, well, we got about 1,000 of these. Oh, really? So what's the plan to get through them? Well, we're going through them as quick as we can. So how many have you done? Well, we've done about 6 of these. Oh, really? So I submitted a bill that would take the responsibility on the first line away from the AG's office and to Bill Gardner, the Secretary of State. So Bill can contact the people that he deals with all the time in the cities and towns. You know, has this person moved? Do you know this person? Is this somebody that fell out of the sky on registration day? Or just somebody that just happened to, you know, move and didn't properly know So at the present time, we've got about 51 that have been cleared by Bill Gardner's office that are being now prosecuted by the AG, of people that they know are not properly voting. And so these are the first couple that have come out. Another 51, according to the article, are still being used in further investigation. But I think it's so important that, everybody votes. If you're
Definitely.
elderly, if you're a college kid, if you're 18, you should vote. The only question is, where do you vote? And I think the reforms that we put into place back in 2018, 2016, say, well, you vote where you live. And this question about residency and domicile,
Right.
which has been a loophole in the law to let people live somewhere else but vote in New Hampshire, is now being tightened up. And the clear reading from the AG's office now and from the Secretary of State and the Department of Safety is that if you vote in New Hampshire, that's evidence of residency in New Hampshire. If you vote in New Hampshire, you are considered a resident. And if you're considered a resident, then down the road, you need to comply with residency laws, like 60 days, get your car registered, get your driver's license adapted. You have 60 days to do it, but if you're going to vote, be willing to be a resident of New Hampshire and put some skin in the game.
And you have to do the same as the other residents.
That's right. We love to have more residents. We got almost 90,000 in Nashville. It'd be great to have some more.
Yeah.
But please, when you vote,
And,
comply with residency laws.
people know that. We have how many times, there's only 10 votes separating the winners and losers.
Yeah.
So everybody get out and vote.
Everybody vote counts. And we count on you to watch the show, and thank you very much for tuning in to The People's View. For Carl Seidel, I'm Bill Ohm. See you next time.
Oh,